I would like to go back to the high-yielding opportunities. So I'm going to give you a short introduction about the real estate investment type, and then I'm going to, go on telling you about the opportunities that we see and we're trying to bring to our investors at the moment. So starting with rental properties, probably the lowest risk real estate investments there are. Of course, the risk can vary based on the different type of properties, markets, areas, and so on. But it's still a ready asset that can generate income, and there aren't that many things that could go very wrong. So it's kind of like a buy-to-let type where we purchase the property under our SPV and manage it and operate it, and to pay out the monthly rental incomes to our investors. And upon exit, we're going to pay out. We're going to repay the whole amount, the principal amount, and also the capital growth, the profits that we're able to sell for. So there are two income streams. So the whole property selection process is a lot more complex. We need to identify the source of rental demand. We also want to, I'm talking about a lot about capital growth. So we need to find undervalued properties in the areas where the whole real estate infrastructure is developing fast, and we can see that in 5 years' time or even shorter time, there is potential for capital growth for this type of projects. And the best performing rental yield, you actually don't need to look far. It's the Baltic states, in the Eurozone at least, 5 to 8%. There are actually, it's possible to actually earn even more with some more riskier type of properties, like for example, stock offices or warehouses on the city side. But if you lose the tenant there, then it most likely will stay empty for quite some time, and liquidity-wise, it's very difficult to sell if you don't have the tenant there. And of course, also the day-to-day rentals, but these are off the table at the moment. So I have some interesting statistics as well. Eurostat's latest numbers about real estate prices, the increase of real estate prices and rentals. Rent increases in the European Union countries. The average European Union has been in the past 10 years, starting from 2020 until 2020, around 27%. Estonia is actually leading this table with 105%. At the same time, the rental prices have actually increased even more, 136%. And Latvia and Lithuania are also represented in the top of that list. So this might give you an impression that the market is overheated and the real estate is overpriced, but it's actually not the case. The whole economy has actually been growing even a lot faster. For example, comparing the average salary in Tallinn with real estate prices, people can today afford almost 2 times more than 15 years ago. And I think that it's a very good indicator to evaluate the state of the market. And even the COVID this year has not actually slowed down the growth, at least in Estonia. For example, the average square meter prices in Tallinn increased 6.9% in 2020. So there are many reasons why this opportunity is still there. First of all, the real estate market in Baltic capital cities have been developing extremely rapidly over the past 10, 15 years. When we joined the European Union and Euro as well. As always, a relatively new market for Western Europe, and it's a small market, so not many funds operate here, especially big funds. And the biggest opportunities that we currently see are, properties in the range of 500,000 up to several million, which are also not very easily reachable for private investors. 50K apartment, they sell pretty fast, but the competition is higher in the rental market for those as well. So the rental yield is rather on the lower end, around 5-6%. But with bigger properties, it's possible to get 7-8 with pretty secure, pretty stable monthly income, and it's where the best opportunities are at the moment. So moving on to the next type of real estate investment, real estate backed loans. So it's lending the funds to third-party developers against collateral. it's not very challenging to give out loans, but getting those loans repaid on time can be challenging. So we rather have chosen to work with few reliable, experienced developer than accept projects for anyone who just able to offer worthy collateral or create an impression of it. Having a collateral is definitely extremely important, but it doesn't guarantee your success. If things go bad, then the whole legal and selling process of the collateral is time and resource heavy, and often pays back money to investors, but rarely provides any income. And the high-yielding opportunities, of course, are in the developing markets in Europe. We have been monitoring and researching different markets for almost 2 years until last summer we pulled the trigger with Moldova, where we work with an experienced international developer, and we're able to offer 15% interest with first-ranked mortgage and 50% LTV, which is, in my opinion, very secure. So the reason for why we went to Moldova is the current state of the market. I would say that Moldova is about 10-15 years behind Baltics. They're now moving towards joining the European Union with their new president. The whole notary system in Moldova is a bit behind as well. For example, for purchasing properties, there is no legal debt agreement. So if you want to sell if you want to reservations basically work in a way that the buyer pays 30 to 50% in front, and the ownership will change to the buyer's name. So the developer has to finish the property to get the rest of the money, but is not allowed to put any mortgages on the property. And the average prices in Moldova right now are quite cheap, around maybe 50,000. So paying 30 to 50% in front is not that big of an issue. But they are moving towards EU, and the prices will increase. They are already actually increasing. And from 200,000 apartments, paying 50% in front is unlikely. So I see that the whole notary system will adapt as well. But for now, this is an opportunity for smart investors to finance this gap and earn from it. And moving to the last type, so development projects. These are buy-to-sell projects that we conduct ourselves through our SPV. We manage the whole process ourselves. So I would say that we have better control over the whole process. Obviously, there is more opportunity for the investors as well, as they're funding also the purchasing the property. So especially on the established markets. Let's take, for example, Spain. These good projects, bigger developers that are reliable and experienced, they have access to cheaper money. So there isn't that high yielding opportunity there. But if we do those projects there ourselves, then obviously, investors are more involved. We're able to also pay them higher yields as well. So why we chose Spain to have our development project there is they got the biggest hit from the COVID-19 pandemic that resulted minus 12.4% GDP for them. But when the market is down, it's a great time to enter, in my opinion. You get undervalued deals. There are not many buyers. The market is not active, and so on. So you are able to find those really undervalued projects. And still Spain is established big market. They have like 36 times more people there than in Estonia, and 45 times larger GDP. Yeah, so some areas are more undervalued than others. For example, the prices in Valencia versus Barcelona or Madrid. The construction cost in Spain is around 1,200 euros per square meter. New developments in Valencia are selling around 1,600 euros per square meter. So the supply from the developer side is not that big. While there, in Valencia there is 4.4 million people living there, so the demand side is still quite big. So yeah, this is then the governments are already taking steps for the fast recovery. For example, they lowered VAT for new developments from 6% to 4%. which is great for developers. So yeah, the high yielding opportunities, especially on the established markets, are with this kind of development projects. Okay.
Can we ask some, Tanel, just a couple of quick questions on what you just said? You know, when you were talking about, for example, the Baltics and you know, the 5 to 8% yields, typically what kind of leverage can you get with those properties? Because I'm assuming you're talking about properties that you buy and then just rent out, right?
Yeah.
So are you incorporating leverage, or are these cash purchases?
No, we're not using any leverage. And actually, I would say that it's very we've been like in talk with different banks, and it's actually it's something that I actually like about this market here, that, you know, the banks are very conservative, especially with rental projects. They're not going to allow you to be over leveraged and build your rental portfolio, and then, you know, they take all the risks. You know, going back to the 2008, you know, when the housing crisis hit, Estonia got hit pretty hard, 50% drop in the real estate prices. You know, and if this kind of scenario would, you know, happen again, and there are many investors who are over leveraged, they have built basically the whole portfolio with bank leverage, you know, this is going to overheat the market, and we're going to see, you know, pretty drastic correction on the market. But this has not been the case for the past 10 years. You're not able to build your portfolio with bank leverage. The banks basically are totally against it, and it's very difficult to get it. So we don't use it. The projects are funded purely through crowdfunding, through our investors, and I think it's a lot more safer and healthier market.
Have you thought about, if the banks aren't going to lend on a first charge basis, have you thought about connecting debt and equity together yourself?
Well, yeah, I've been thinking about different scenarios, but even with this kind of rental projects, it's been like a lot of work to explain to investors, especially retail investors. So we'd rather try to keep things as simple as possible. You know, like Yanni said as well, they're like communicating a lot and spending a lot of time just to explain things to investors. Well, we have €100 minimum investments as well, and, you know, I've been explaining this for the past almost like 2.5 years, how these rental projects actually work. And it's also like, you know, real estate backed loans are pretty like common and familiar for retail investors and P2P investors, so they understand how that works. But, you know, we're talking about our rental projects, then they get pretty fast confused, and I need to do a lot of explaining, a lot of webinars, a lot of content about like how and why, and, you know, also talk about the risk side and so on. So I would rather try to keep things as simple as possible, but obviously it's a possibility for the future.
Okay, great.
Okay, any questions left for the presentation, or?
I've got one more, if I may.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think you were talking about in Estonia and Lithuania in particular, you were talking about the larger properties have the better yield, because the smaller properties have a lot more people obviously wanting to buy them, and therefore it pushes the prices up and reduces the yield. But is then the capital growth better on the smaller properties than the bigger properties?
Well, it depends. I would say that the most crucial here is the area. You know, where the whole the capital cities, Tallinn, Riga, and Vilnius, they're developing really fast. So if you buy the property in the area where, you know, the city is investing 100 million into the infrastructure, there are big developments in nearby, you know, if you can hit that kind of area before all this is happening, then, you know, this is where the most of the, you know, you can earn from 500K properties capital growth. You can have like just a 50K property that's giving the same capital growth to you. So the property size here doesn't make that much sense. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but at the same time, you're able to negotiate with the sellers with the bigger properties, so you're most likely going to get them under the market value, because the market is not that active for these kind of properties. So this is where the opportunity is there. You're able to, you know, get a better deal for it.